Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, today my guest is Eyal from intimatepower.com. He is a sexual expert, sexual healing for men and for women. We covered so many different topics, from race to sexuality or repression, from Puritanism. There were so many things, and it's going to be a little bit racy. So this is probably one of the more open interview conversations I've ever had. It's not that bad, but I'm warning you just in case, you may have some sensibilities. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle podcast. This is your host, Emmett Muckles. You can find the podcast on Stitcher, you can find it on iTunes, and you can also find it on emmettmuckles.com and the Billionaire Lifestyle LLC. You may be wondering why I have so many places, because it just happens that way. Today, I have all the way from Australia. In a few seconds, I knew this guy was cool because we got into a conversation about techno music and its origins. From Detroit, as I always represent. Please help me to welcome, and I want you guys to say it silently, welcome Eyal from Intimate Power. How you doing today?
Hello, mate. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad that we could actually connect up. Sexuality and sexual dysfunction is such a prevalent thing in our society. A lot of people, particularly in some societies, have this repression that is happening, and particularly women. And that's what I see. I'm not that young, but I can see that, there are a lot of people who just don't understand their whole body. They don't understand their intuitiveness and their sexuality. So what is it that you bring to the table to help people understanding their transformation in their sexual energy?
The first idea is that sexual empowerment transforms your life. It's not just about sexuality. It's not just about sex. So, I get some people, coaching inquiries. We have a conversation and they say, my life is okay. I only have a problem with my sexuality. And when we dig deeper, we actually discovered that they actually held back in many areas of their life, and it's the sexuality which is the reason for that. Because sexuality is the core energy. It's like Freud was right in many ways that we are sexual beings, and we are motivated by a lot of sexual energies. And when that piece of your life is not sorted, when a person has issues with that, it affects everything else. So somebody can be, successful and influential and doing good things in the world, but if they have a problem with the sexuality, they would constantly reach a glass ceiling, where they would feel they don't know why it's not working. They don't know why they're doing the things, but they don't not getting the results. So somebody wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill.
Yes, I've read that.
Yeah, so you might be aware, and some people are aware of chapter 13 when he talks about sexual transmutation, but nobody understands what the F is talking about. Okay, sexual transmutation. What is that? And what he's actually saying, if you read between the lines, is he's suggesting men not to ejaculate so often. And that's a really novel concept for men, because actually society is addicted to ejaculation, and there's a lot of sexual dysfunction actually in the world. So this, slightly old-fashioned American guy back in the 1930s, interviewed the leaders of the industry, and what he found out is that they have certain practices, daily practices and character traits and so on. And one of them was the control over the sexual energy. They were not losing their sexual energy so much. So they might be sexual, but they wouldn't be losing the sexual energy. So I'm not suggesting anybody to become a monk, unless you really want to. That's okay if you want to become a monk, but you can become a tantric monk or a sexual monk, which means you can be doing amazing sexual practices with your partner or with a few women if that's your choice, And you can be using that sexual energy to elevate your spiritual practice, to elevate your mission and your purpose, to elevate your creativity, to elevate your wealth and your business and your mission and your purpose, to become more confident in the world, to be more healthy. So yeah, that's an introduction, I would say, to we can open a lot of doors from this.
So would you say, or would you kind of say that, in what you were just talking about, that it's a practice of controlling your kundalini, making sure that you have the best to offer when you actually do become intimate with someone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many men, by the way, this is a conversation not just for men, but also for women, because both men and women have their ways of losing sexual energy. And the idea is that it's like coming to a competition. Yeah, think about if you have like a sports tournament competition thing. The night before, you're not going to go partying and drinking and like running a marathon before you have to play basketball or whatever and have like the championship. But this is actually what many people are doing. They're constantly depleting their sexual energy, and then they come to the sexual union and they arrive depleted, they arrive tired, they arrive without sexual energies. And this is why there's so many issues of premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction and health issues and so on that people are having. And it's also a reason for a lack of connection, because when you get into your 30s and your 40s and you have sex, you might be enjoying the sex, but after you ejaculate, and for women there's also a parallel, you might feel disconnected from yourself, disconnected from your partner, kind of like, I love you, darling, but I'm just going to, check my Facebook feed for now. I love you, but I'm going to roll, and sleep. It's like a cultural joke that men ejaculate and they fall asleep. And women really feel that. They feel the loss of connection. They feel the loss of intimacy. So you might be doing something, to still, get her off after you finish, but then it's like it's technical. It's like it's very, very technical and automatic, and it's goal oriented. I came, now you need to come, and then we tick the box. There's like a box over your head when you have sex. It's like each person needs to come and maybe come 3 times, and then you feel like a real man. And what I teach men is that first of all, they can have amazing orgasmic experiences without ejaculating. By the way, ejaculations, we kind of like got straight into into the meat of the conversation. There's many other things that I'm teaching and talking about and working with people, but this is one of the core practices for sure. So yeah, men can have very, very deep orgasmic experiences. How open and how honest can I be on this podcast, mate? Are you explicit?
You can be you can be explicit, because all I have to do is just mark it and say we got kind of real on this podcast.
Yeah, good. Because I believe we have to have the real conversations, because many things in society are desensitized, desexualized, politically correct. And I think that's fucking boring. Here, okay, good. The efforts are coming out.
There you go.
and it's like it's the same thing with effort. Effort is considered what's the word for it in English? It's like being crass and whatever. But for me, it's an exclamation word, and it's a very beautiful word. Fuck is a beautiful word. Making love is a beautiful word. Having sex is a beautiful word. Penis, vagina, the whole thing are beautiful words. I don't see any problem with them. So going back to the experiences of ejaculation control, I would be making love with a woman, and for the first time, and after a few minutes I start writhing and shaking and moaning and so on, and the woman would be like, "What, have you already came?" And I would be like, "No, darling, I'm just getting started." So really, this is what's possible. And again, keep remembering that I have a model that I developed around ejaculation control, and there's a few aspects to that model. And the first aspect is asking yourself why. Why do you want to do these practices? Why do you even ejaculate? You know, it's like, why are you having sex? Why are you having relationships? It all starts with why, like this guy Simon Sinek says in his very good TED Talk. So first of all, look at your why. Why are you doing all of these things? Why are you choosing? And are you really choosing, or are you programmed by evolution? Are you programmed by society because this is what you see in porn and this is what you learn from your buddies when you're a teenager? So really, it's about changing your life, and I think this is something that you do with the Billionaire Lifestyle. It's as well. It's about looking at your beliefs and noticing that some of them are limiting beliefs. Beliefs around scarcity, beliefs around your self-value and what you can bring to the world. And this is the same with sex. Do you see the parallels?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Let's start from the beginning here, because I am not 40. I'm well above 40, but I'm not 60. But here's the thing that I realized. So once upon a time in our culture, it was about romance. And that romance is gone, and now it is about it's not even really about, it's about sex, but it is not about the healthiest form of sex. It is literally just about attention in that form. Because I even said this to some young ladies. I'm like, you guys are really kind of messing it up. When I went through my divorce, I said, like, because I'm like, every dude you guys are just sucking up to anybody now, and I mean that figuratively. like there's this shortage of capable men. I'm like, but it's something that you guys may have caused, because one of the things that I do know is that my education sexually, the most information I've ever gotten, I've gotten from a woman, because I had to figure out how to communicate with her, and or what I need to do to physically, mentally, and spiritually connect with her, because I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we have this porn culture that really skews the whole diaspora of sexuality, because there's some things I've seen, and if someone says, well, I don't watch porn, that's crazy. Everybody watches porn. If there's some things I've seen that literally disgust me. I mean, it's like watching a train wreck. And you can't help but notice, because I'm older, that I know the difference. But there's a whole generation out there who accepts that as normal. So how do we educate people in, first of all, male sexuality in connection with the female, and female understanding themselves that we are a yin and yang versus two different balls of energy trying to collide?
Yeah, that's very beautiful what you said, and there's a whole bunch of doors we can open from each of them. So there's you talked about porn culture, and I would say that porn is not just a problem. Porn is a symptom. Okay, so sometimes people get hung up on it's like war. War is not just a problem. War is also a symptom of people's egos and beliefs and so on. So I have I wrote this article for the Huffington Post called "Are We Sexually Repressed and We Don't Know It?" And what I'm claiming there is all of the societal issues that considered problems, but I see them as symptoms. And some of them, the porn culture is one of them. And by the way, one out of every 3 porn users are women. So it's not just men who are watching porn. Porn is directly related to premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction, to breakup of marriages. Marriages themselves, by the way, is a construct, is an organization that doesn't work. It's a system that doesn't work. What is it? 1 out of every 2 or 3 marriages end up in divorce. There's huge rates of infidelity as well. Between 40 to 60% of married couple would cheat on their partner throughout their marriage. Okay, how's that for a statistic? And it's like I have like the scientific studies sources for all of that. There's also, so that's part of it. 30% of women say that they cheated because they were not happy with their sex life. There's a lot of sexual dysfunction. There's a lot of sexuality sexual issues and issues with reproductive system, so women having vaginal stuff, womb stuff, female reproductive systems issues. Men also have issues with testicles and prostate and anal cancers and so on. Okay, so these are all related in my mind. If you believe in the mind-body connection, these are all related to what are we doing with our sexual energies. Are we expressing them or are we suppressing them? And the claim that I make in this article is that actually there's a lot of repression, and what's not expressed becomes repressed, and what is repressed becomes stagnant. And think about it like you have a new pool. You build a new pool in your backyard, and you take pristine, spring water, and you put it in the pool, and it's all beautiful and nice. Leave it there for 2 months without taking care of it, and you have a swamp.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's there's other analogies with it's like take a bunch of apples. If there's one rotten apple there, which is the sexuality part, all of the apples will become rotten really, really fast. Okay, so some people, yes, please.
I was wondering this. Yeah. So I'm in America, and I know the history of sexual repression, the history and control of women, of minorities, as particularly, I'm a African American male or black male. So there is a great deal that's tied to my sexuality as related to this country.
Yeah.
How can we make healthier citizens of the world sexually?
But what do you mean when you say that that's interesting for me, if I can ask you a question. What do you mean that your sexuality is related to you being black and to the country and so on?
Well, this is going to be a racy show.
Oh, please bring it on. I'm what I call a positive racist, which is
so. No, when I
acknowledge. Let me just say that I acknowledge there's differences between races and there's characteristics, and they're beautiful, and we celebrate them.
Yes.
Okay, I celebrate the differences.
Yeah.
So please bring it on.
When I say racy, I mean like off color. I don't mean like as in race of people. But here's what I'm referring to, because I'm a melanated individual and I have deep melanin in my skin. So if anybody who is non-melanated chooses me as a mate, my characteristics will be far more dominant typically in whatever offspring we bear. That has been a driving force why African American men or people of color in general are kind of looked down upon, because of the dominant society's take, like, hey, we trying to preserve us, but and it psychologically it goes back to that, from years and years and years ago. No one ever talks about it though. Because that is the root cause. If you have a black man and a white woman, you typically have a child that looks, of color. If you have a white man and a black woman, you have a child of color. It's only when you get these very two genetically similar individuals together, i.e. Caucasoid, together, that you get this particular offspring. And if you get two people of color together, did you get a particular strain of DNA that manifests itself? So that's caused a lot of problems in the world. And I'm going to tell you, and you're going to understand it perfectly, whenever someone thinks about a black male sexually, they think of very large penis. Or they relate it to animalism, or animalistic things. So, I'm very well versed in it, and I'm very well versed in women's issues, because a lot of women don't even know the fact that women's suffrage around the world, particularly in America, was 1922. They were severely repressed, and then they really didn't start to come along, particularly those who are non-color, until the 1960s in America with the movement of the civil rights. Sexuality is directly tied to all of that in a big ball of stuff. That's
beautiful. And that's, it's like there was the Civil War, and I'm not so versed with American history, but the idea is that some things on the surface are all equal and whatever, but then under the surface they're actually not. So there was a Civil War, and slavery was abolished, but actually blacks didn't have their rights until the 1960s, and still there is, to this day, there is still inequality and so on. And if we take it back to sex, it's the same thing with sex. So we have an illusion of the sexual revolution, liberating us, and everybody's sexually liberated, and women have the pill, and people are free to have sex and so on. But sex is shit. It's like the average sexual experience in the world is shit. If you look at, I'm sorry to say, it's like, I know that I'm generalizing a lot, but trust me, I have spoken with hundreds and probably thousands of people, and I'm getting the emails from people. And there's reasons for that. Some of it is the Judeo-Christian beliefs around sex and sexuality, sex being the original sin. There's some of it, by the way, the human rights and female rights issues. In some ways, they're backfired because this whole idea of us being the same slightly desexed both men and women. Okay, so men and women are not sure how to be men and women these days because they're getting all of these mixed messages from society. And, women, got their rights, which is great, and became successful and kicked ass in the office and so on. But in some ways, they forgot their feminine side, their soft side, their nurturing side. And, guys sometimes are a caricature of masculinity. So a guy would, go to the gym and, work on his muscles and, start a fight at the gym. And this is what's considered masculine. You look at Hollywood movies, you're like, that's what you see. The guy's like this Schwarzenegger, character. Okay, I love Schwarzenegger personally, but you know what I mean? It's like the guys who are all tough. And it's important to understand that we have both masculine and feminine inside us, and it's to live a healthy life, to build a balance, to live a balanced life, a successful life. And I think even to live the billionaire lifestyle is around acknowledging both of these energies, both of these aspects within yourself, but choosing to play with them, and also choosing to express the part which maybe is missing, the part which is not expressed. So I see a lot of men who are missing a spine, men who are missing direction, men who don't have mission and purpose in their life. And I'm also seeing women, because I know that because they come to seek my coaching and my guidance, and they're successful and they're running businesses and so on, but they're feeling dry. They're feeling, sometimes emotionally and physically dry, like their vaginas are dry. Okay, they don't feel the juice of life. They don't feel the enjoyment of life because they're stuck in this masculine way of doing things. So I do practices with them to connect them to their femininity. So I'm a man working a lot with women around connecting them to their femininity. And women actually say that they seek me as a man because of the sexual polarity. Because sexual polarity means that we are, we have equal rights, but we are very different. So we are not equal. How do I usually say that? Anyway, so we are equal, but we are different. We're not the same. Okay, so this is another thing with politically correctness, that you're not supposed to say these things, because men and women, it's like they have different genitalia and different breasts and stuff, but that's it. That's the difference. But there's brain chemistry differences between male and women. There's hormonal differences between men and women, and I love to acknowledge those differences and celebrate them. So as a dancer, I lead women in dance. And by the way, I can share a link to a new dance form that I've created called Dansual, where it's a combination of Latin dance, modern dance, conscious dance, and some of my sexual healing work. So anyway, this was a whole a long rant around this topic, but does that make sense for you, mate?
No, my brother. This is so very important to the world. It's important not just to the world, it's important to individuals, because a lot of people simply don't understand their sexuality. They don't understand their state of being. They don't understand their spiritual connection to the physical or to each other. And here's a question I was going to ask you. How do you think that the role of parenting and the understanding or perception of a child moving forward in a family, seeing the interaction between a male and a female, how much do you think that affects the ultimate sexual experience of a later adult?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. You only need to ask everybody around you, and most people, and again, I talk about sex with a lot of people, is hearing about the repression, hearing about the issues and the values and the criticism and so on that came from their parents. And as I like saying, it's like we think we're all sexually liberated, but you only need to look at our parents, and our parents were considered liberated because they came from the 60s, so the 60s or the 50s or the 40s, but anyway, they experienced the sexual revolution already. And I'm very passionate about sexual education, and sexual education not just to young people, but sexual education to all people that will become parents, because your sexual experiences, your sexual values affect not just the sexuality of your child, but everything in your child's life. Even if you don't talk about it, it's a problem by itself. But even if sometimes people think that they are all open and so on, they're actually carrying a lot of guilt and shame around sexuality. There is this cultural meme, that says it takes a village to raise a child. Do you know that one?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So I say something else, and it takes a village to raise a rapist.
Oh, that's kind of harsh.
Yeah, it is, but that's true because rapists were once little cute children. They were little cute young men. So why is it? And I'm not justifying anything that anybody's doing, but I'm saying that there's reasons that there's so much sexual violence and sexual repression and sexual abuse in the world. And this is because young men and women, by the way, women are also perpetrators in some aspects as well. So there's the way that kids are being brought up around sexuality, around expressing themselves, around power, around denying aspects of both femininity and sexuality. That once these things, like I mentioned earlier, are not expressed, they become repressed. So at a certain stage, a young man would start to internalize all of this guilt and all of this shame, and he might, try to be like a nice guy or whatever, but he still have his sexual urges. But society is not acknowledging his sexual urges, and he has to constantly suppress them. So when he suppresses them, and then he starts to watch porn, and then he gets the wrong kind of messages from his peers. And then women in this, in porn, for example, are objects. By the way, males are objects as well. Both of them are objectified. But there's no connection, there's no feeling, there's no intimacy, there's no romance. And this is part of the reasons of the rise of rape culture and sexual abuse culture. So it takes a village to raise a rapist, because a rapist, somebody who's an abuser, either male or female, they don't grow up in a void. They don't grow up in vacuum. They grow up in society. They grow up with parents. They grow up with kindergarten teachers and junior school teachers and high school teachers. They grow up with celebrities in the media. They grow up with the media, and the media obviously over-sexualizes everything, but also chastises people who are sexual. So there's this double values in society around being sexual, with a man who's sexual is considered a stud, which is a good thing for many people, and a woman who's sexual is considered a slut, which is not good for most people. And this is why people are confused around sexuality, and the confusion leads to all of these behaviors, which are anything from unpleasant, unharmonious, all the way to sexual abuse and rape. So that's does that make sense? Does that make sense, Emmett?
Yeah, that does make sense to me. And one thing that I really kind of grapple with is the understanding that many men don't really understand their mate and don't communicate with their mate. And a lot of times I'm from the United States, but I understand that around the world, there are many women who, they cannot speak, they cannot communicate their desires to their mate because it's just not culturally accepted. And one of the things that I'd like you to speak on is what you deal with women, because I think this is really important, because I see us turning, and our entire culture, and I think our entire globe is becoming more feminine, more effeminate. I mean, we see it in everyday life. There are things that you would never used to see in the media, and now it's a mainstay.
Yeah.
So with women, what do you see their biggest problem? Is it mental? Is it a mental emotional connection or mind body connection that they're not adhering to?
So you're asking what is the biggest issue that women are facing?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, that's a really good question, and this ties into what I said earlier about confusion around male and female roles. So I see that one of the biggest issues that women are facing is the disconnection actually from their feminine. And there's a lot of extremes in society, and also you see not the talk shows. How do you say this? There's this American
reality show.
Yeah, it's like this guy that have all of these people who are going into like crazy dramatic expressions and so on. So there's a lot of drama in society. There's basically the immature and the shadow masculine and the immature and the shadow feminine in society. And women are suffering from that because they try to be strong and they try to be powerful, and they also like try to be feminine, but they don't know what feminine means anymore because, if you watch, I don't know, Ally McBeal, just remember this law series from the 90s, so the women are in the office and they're kicking ass, and if they're bitchy, they're successful. So what I see with women is that they lost the connection with their body, they lost the connection with their softness, they lost the connection with their femininity, they lost the connection with the feminine spirit, and they're just trying to be men. And women come to me and seek my guidance because they can't. It's like they tell me, it's like in some ways they can't live anymore in this state of doing. And the idea is to connect them to their body, to connect them to softness and nurturing, to sensitivity, to intimacy, to connection and love. And by doing that, they're able. This is one of the biggest gifts that a woman can bring. So I bring a lot of guidance and direction and clarity and structure. So when I ask my clients, this is what they say. It's like they love the clarity, and clarity is a masculine trait. And what the woman brings to me is the embodiment. Okay, so women need to understand that they have an innate gift that they have as women. A woman can bear a child. A woman can create life. The man's role is a few minutes, and for some minutes a few seconds. But the woman has to create this life and nurturing for the first 9 months inside her body, and then for the next 20 years outside her body. So this is an innate feminine gift that women sometimes forget. And the first person that the woman needs to nurture is herself, because there's so many women who are stuck in the service and in the service of others, in the service of the men, and I'm really supporting this, that people serve each other. But also a person, first of all, needs to take care of themselves. In case of what you hear in airplanes, in case of the loss of cabin pressure, put your own mask first before attending to any children and those in need. And there's a cultural issue with women and generally with people doing stuff for others but forgetting about themselves. So you notice that with everything that I'm saying, I'm talking about two extremes, and I'm talking about needing to explore the extremes and to integrate the extremes. So it's not about being masculine or feminine. It's about playing with both. I definitely have a lot of feminine qualities and energies and behaviors and so on that I love and make me a more conscious man and a more balanced man. And it's the same thing with spirit and matter. On the Billionaire Lifestyle, I think that's an idea that can serve, somebody wanting to make money. You cannot just focus on matter and materialism and the physical plane. You also need to understand there's a spirit plane and an energy plane and a mind plane, and you need to integrate all of them in order to be successful. It's neither about about the other, it's about both. So Tantra, which is the art and the methodology and the philosophy that I come from, is a very inclusive philosophy. So it says, let's celebrate life, let's celebrate sex, let's celebrate relationship, let's celebrate money and wealth and business and purpose and luxuries and a social lifestyle, and also let us be connected to spirit in the same time, by our own or in a cave or in a meditation retreat or in our morning meditations, or while we're having sex, or while we are serving our clients. We can be connected both to our sexual energies and to our spiritual energies. So this is a few words about the deeper aspects of this.
Yeah, I see it kind of. There's two things. I see how sexuality is misunderstood. And I'm going to tell you where I had an epiphany. It was not that long ago. I participated in I went to a nude beach.
Yeah.
And I had this epiphany right before this bee stung me. I was in Europe, and I was sitting there, and I realized all of a sudden that over the course of a couple of hours, this male macho ego thing disappeared, and I started seeing just people. From that point on, I began to see sexuality totally different in the fact that, I actually believe this. Everybody should be able to be nude in front of each other, because it will take away the mystery and you will see the actual physical person. So then when you're really attracted to somebody, it will be a true attraction versus this thing you make up in your head, because you see somebody and you immediately begin to wonder, what is that experience like with that person? Because I don't have access to it.
Yeah.
And, it's just a wonderful thing. Here's what I want to ask you, though. How did Orgasm Unleashed come about?
Wow. Okay. So Orgasm Unleashed, for those who don't know me and my work, Orgasm Unleashed is the full name is Orgasm Unleashed, your guide to pleasure, healing, and power. And this is an orgasm guide for women that also men love to read as well. But it's basically a guide for women on becoming multi-orgasmic, deeply orgasmic. And even if a woman thinks that you're already orgasmic, there's so much more to experience. There's there's 20 different kinds of orgasm. There's the 1 hour orgasm. Sometimes you can have more orgasms. Orgasms are not just sexual, which means they don't just come from penetration. They don't just come from genital touch. They don't just come from body touch. They can happen without touch. They can happen by yourself. They can happen while you're in public. They can happen with or without a partner. I have this article that's going to be published soon, which is called "What Does Orgasmic Really Mean?" And I explore all of or some of the different experiences of orgasm that are available for both men and women. So I was basically to go back to your question, I was very interested in sex and sexuality all my life, like I think most people are, but for me, it was always kind of like the young scientist / healer kind of approach. So I was always wanting to help and to heal and to empower people, and specifically women. And I've discovered Tantra in 2005. I've been exploring Tantra by myself from the late 90s. And then in 2005, I stumbled across a Tantra course in the island of Koh Phangan, where I was living in Thailand. And I started practicing, and immediately I started practicing sexual healing on women. At that time, it was called yoni massage or vaginal massage. And I was very sexually active, obviously, with many women, and it wasn't just a numbers game. We were not drunk, we were not stoned, we were not like on drugs, but it was a natural high of the sexual energy. Okay, so I had a lot of conscious and beautiful sexual experiences where I actually, wake up in the morning and remember who I went to bed with and remember her name, and if we bump to each other on the street, we will have a good vibe. There's a lot of beautiful connections back there. And then I started practicing sexual healing all of these women. I wasn't just having sex with them. By the way, because of my ejaculation control practice, sometimes I couldn't stay inside, which is one of the things that I teach men in the beginning that they need to do. And when I pulled out, I wasn't just twiddling my fingers. I was using my fingers for better effects. And it wasn't just about pleasure, because, by the way, many men are too focused. Basically, men don't know how to touch women, and women don't know how to touch men. That's a different question. But I was healing those women, and I was having amazing experiences, and they were having amazing healing experiences. And then women started telling me, you should offer this as a service to other women. You should become a sexual healer. And I said, who, me? I'm not good enough. It's like, who am I to do that? And I'm not certified, and I don't have the 30 years of experience that my Swami, my teacher, has. And a woman, a friend, and a lover told me, Eyal, you're already doing it. So just acknowledge that you're doing it and really do it. And yeah, I started, and my first client was actually a woman by the name of Layla Martin, who's now a really big sexual educator in the US and internationally. So yeah, I was working with many women around issues of pain and sexuality during sex, and women who went through rape and sexual abuse and incest and many issues, or just women who were not orgasmic without having any trauma in their past. And then I was working with more and more women. I started running workshops. I moved to Australia. I opened a Tantra school. But then I felt I want to bring this knowledge and these practices to more women. So I took what I've experienced in 20 years of being sexual and 10 years of Tantra, and I wrote the book Orgasm Unleashed with that. So this is what I've been doing with clients, in my one-on-one sessions. I basically teach women how to do this by themselves, and many women get amazing benefits from the book. And the book was so some people are asking themselves, it's like, I'm a man, how can I write a book about the female orgasm? So I wrote it based on experience with many women, and the book was endorsed by female sexual educators around the world, and Layla Martin being one of them, and many others. One of them said that it's the best female orgasm book that she've ever read. So yeah, maybe I'm a man who does know what he's talking about when it comes to female sexuality.
That's a good point.
So yeah.
So with here's one thing that I understand about the female experience is the fact that many women. Let me digress.
Please.
Let me go back to when I was 17, 18, when it's all new, it's all filled in your heart. And for instance, you spend an hour kissing with someone, touching someone, which is the buildup. You're building a connection. And then, as you get older, or from conversations I've had, it becomes kind of mechanical, where it's, it becomes selfish, where a lot of people are like, let me get mine, you get yours, and then we'll go do the dishes or eat pizza. I had my orgasm. Did you have your orgasm? Okay, we both had an orgasm. We can do something else now. But, that is a real thing that many people don't, A, communicate, B, they're ignorant. And that's one of the things that, I figured out early on. Just ask. And, that's with anything in life. If you say, what do you like? What are you into? What's your thing? Because I figure that most people, they get to it too quick and don't understand each other. How do you see that? Do you see that playing a part in people's lives much?
Yeah, that's related to what I mentioned earlier, which is men and women don't know how to touch each other anymore. They don't know how to have sex. They don't know how to touch themselves. They don't know about pleasure. Sexual education sucks, and not in a good way. So when you look at school, sexual education teaches us basically what can go wrong and what to be careful of. Basically, pregnancies and STDs. Okay, so it's better you don't do it at all. Wait until you're married, or wait at least until you're 20, so you're not at school anymore, so we don't have to deal with that. And this is the reason that it's like, and also porn culture obviously teaches people the wrong things. It's like back in the old days, it used to be elders, and the boys would be with the men, and the men would talk with them about how to touch a woman, how to make love with a woman. And in some societies, men and women, or boys and girls, when they reach a certain age, would be initiated first of all by the same-sex elders, and later by opposite-sex elders, and sexual education would be organic, but also sex would not be something which is so hidden, So maybe youngsters would be around elders who are having sex. And by the way, I'm not saying anything to do it right now, because society is so fucked in some way. We need to reset in some ways. But in the old days, there was much more openness around sexuality. And by the way, with some societies and some cultures and some subcultures, it's still the case. So I was making love with my Dutch lover, and her 3 kids were on the upper floor, and we could hear them, so they could obviously hear us. And I asked her, it's like, is that okay? And she said, yeah, they're kids, they need to know what life is and what sex is, and if mommy is making sounds and moaning and shouting, that's okay.
In the American culture, that is such a taboo.
Yeah.
Immediate when you were saying it, I just pictured the reaction of the listeners.
Yeah.
I could just see their faces like, what? And
yeah, we're touching on everything today. It's like sex, race, money, religion. It's like, yeah. And I'm sure you'll get some love letters from your audience.
Oh yeah, and the big thing about it is we have different. This world is a very big place, and we have very different cultures, particularly related to intimacy.
Yeah.
Some places it's a very controlled faction, where one faction wants to control the other. But what people don't really understand is at the end of the day, we are a yin and yang. Yin and yang are very much connected, very same shapes, but they're different. Yeah. And we have to come together and understand what the opposite or the other side of us needs from us versus, just think what the experience is like if you went into it with unselfish love.
Yeah, and let me add something to that, if I may, and just something stuck in my mind. You said we live, it's like you live in America. You actually live in a British colony, mate. I live in a British British colony.
Ours started out as a British colony, but it's Canada's a British colony.
So let me please. I beg to differ, okay? Because your country and the country at least that I live in right now, Australia, were both established by the British Empire, and they are based on British values, on Victorian values. So the Puritanism, it's basically a nation that came from the philosophy of Puritanism, from the philosophy of what's called Victorianism, and this was the cultural zeitgeist of the English people in the 16th, 17th, 18th century and so on. So even though there's a few hundred years that passed since there, you are still carrying a lot of those values and a lot of those beliefs, and a lot of this is also Christian, and you would agree with me that a lot of the US is Christian, either strongly like in the South, or a little bit more mildly everywhere else. But it's the combination of the British values, the Victorian values, the Puritanism, and also together with the Christian values that bring about this social miseducation, and all of the guilt and shame around sexuality. So when you talk about sexuality being a taboo, sexuality was a taboo in the Victorian times, and this is why it still is. And you look at other cultures that were not exposed to or before they were exposed to the Puritanism, and after they were exposed to the Puritanism, what happened? And one of the examples that I give is India. So India gave us, gave us the Kama Sutra, gave us Tantra, gave us so much, and then the English came, and obviously there was other colonialism as well, like the Muslims and so on. But it was specifically with the British that destroyed a lot of the sexual openness and the sexual arts that were practiced in India, to the level that, Gandhi, who I really love and appreciate and so on, Gandhi wanted to destroy the Khajuraho temples. Khajuraho temples are tantric temples with statues of people in various aspects and various positions of very intricate lovemaking. Sometimes, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 people. And there's all like statues of that. And Gandhi, who we think of as enlightened and it's like very advanced and an amazing person, wanted to bulldoze these temples, wanted to destroy those temples because he thought they were wrong. So this is what Puritanism has done. It has destroyed the tantric tradition of India, and it's basically created a lot of guilt and shame and issues around sexuality to the level that sexuality is a taboo right now, and nudity is a taboo right now, and sexual expressions and sexual sounds are a taboo right now. And this is most of the Western world is like that. A little bit less in France, for example. Okay, so France didn't have the English Puritanism. It was other values, and this is not just around sex. This is also around food. So think about senses and sensuality. There's a book called The Culture Code. I don't remember who's the author, but sex and food and all of these aspects have different meanings in different cultures. Okay, so in the US, food would be a fuel. So if somebody finishes a meal, they would say, "I'm full." So this is like charging your iPhone. Your iPhone or your smartphone becomes full. But when in France, they would say, "I'm satisfied." And if you look at the food and what people eat and what they eat it, it's like, no offense, but the emblem or the symbol of American food is junk food. Do you generally agree with that generalization?
I do agree with that.
The emblem of the French food is the French meal with the little what's the word, portions, but they're very refined. They're very refined in a good way, not like sugar. They're very exquisite. Okay, so and also the French gave us the French kiss. Don't talk about an American kiss. Nobody invented the American kiss. The French kiss, and the sensuality of the French is different because they had different values in society. You look at the Polynesian, and again, the Polynesian had amazing sexual practices before the Westerners came, and you can look at some of the early explorers. Obviously, most of them, either being like Christian and Puritan, like the British or the Dutch or the Portuguese. And they described their meetings with some of those tribal societies or tribal cultures, and they described the sexual practices of those, Polynesians, for example. And they used to be really, really sexually open. And then the Westerners came, and they didn't just start ruling the country and establishing, Christian schools and so on. They also brought the STDs with them. They also brought syphilis and so on into those areas that never had those issues because if you believe in the mind-body connection, those issues are related to the values that you carry. So yeah, that's wow. We opened some good stuff.
Yeah,
I have to say, I'm not sure if I ever spoke about any of the stuff in the podcast, mate. I really appreciate this, Emmett.
That's because you're on the Billionaire Lifestyle. We are unlimited beings spiritual beings live in this physical existence, and that sometimes we like to put these physical caps on our existence, but I am not like that. This is the reason that I started the Billionaire Lifestyle. It was to do a service. I needed to be a servant and I need to be a teacher, but I need to learn as well. So through all these wonderful people like yourself that I get to converse with and have a conversation with, I learn a great deal about not only myself, the world, and just the whole spiritual connection. Because one thing I was going to say earlier, and it reflects in our modern times how we're destroying the earth. And women are like the earth and men are like the sun. So you have to take care of that earth so that it can receive that warm ray from the sun. And there's a great interplay, but we've lost our interplay between each other, our communication, our understanding, our spiritual connection. And you can see it in reflection because we're going after base root chakra only and not hitting the other levels that we need to incorporate into our being. You and I could probably talk for hours and cover so many subjects, but I know the attention span of my audience probably isn't that long, so I'm going to try to keep it short. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that I share. I basically believe in sharing a lot of free stuff, and people obviously understand there's much more at the back end. So the main address is intimatepower.com. Intimate like intimacy, not like internet. Okay, intimatepower.com. And there you will find a free ejaculation control program. You will find a 70-page sample of the book Orgasm Unleashed. You would find many podcast interviews. You would see videos of me walking with women, giving them, vaginal massage, yoni massage, bringing them to orgasm without touch. One of those got 250,000 views already within a few months on YouTube. So the work is starting to spread. And what I would also say that if you're listening and you're somebody who knows that he can make a beautiful difference in the world and really serve people, I work with a few individuals every year, taking them through 6 to 12 months of very, very intimate coaching, working on their sexuality, on their creativity, and on their conscious business. So if this is something that inspires you, I'm happy to have a conversation and see how I can help. And also there's probably a New York City workshop in September that I'm holding, and there might be other workshops around the US. And if somebody wants to organize a workshop, organize a gathering, I'm very happy to bring this work wherever it's needed.
So whenever you come to America, you have to send me a shout out and let me know where you're going to be so that you and I can hang out, have a cappuccino or something.
Awesome. I'll be happy to.
What about Twitter, Facebook? Are you involved in those mediums?
Yeah, but the best thing is the website. There's also two big groups that I created and I facilitate. It's part of a social movement that I've launched called the Sexual Empowerment Movement. So if you just look for sexual empowerment for women or sexual empowerment for men, join the Facebook groups, and I share a lot of resources and support, and there's beautiful discussions there as well. So these are two other ways to connect. And also I hope that people would watch the dance video and understand what I'm talking about, maybe come to one of the dance events. And what I would also say, and this is I want to thank you for giving me a stage and an audience to speak to, because otherwise I'll just be speaking to myself or to my clients or the people around me. So this work really needs to spread, and I invite everybody who is a podcaster, YouTuber, journalist, whatever, anybody who has an audience, and wants to interview. I'm very, very happy to be on their show. And I want to acknowledge you, Amit, for the work that you're doing. And I really have to say that we have touched on the most charged, non-politically correct, explosive, controversial stuff in one conversation. I've never had something like that. I really acknowledge you and grateful for you for having a real conversation, for having a true conversation. So thank you very much, mate.
That's what it's about to be human, is to have connection. And all we're doing is exchanging air.
Beautiful. I hope the listeners loved my hot air.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, remember this. You know, we've talked about sexuality. We've talked about connection. Here's what you have to do. The ultimate existence, as he said earlier, is you have to love yourself first. I want you to do this, and I say this just about every podcast. When you get out the shower, when you're brushing your teeth, look in the mirror. There is something fabulous looking back at you. It is a 1 in a billion or trillion miracle. Understand that. Understand that you are loved, even though you may not feel it. You are loved. And with that, thank you, my man. And we are out. Peace.
Thank you, Emmett. Bye-bye.